Hello everyone. In today's class, I'll be walking you through how to set up a Node.js application using the Express module. We'll be installing Express. We'll be discussing some HTTP request methods and also routing, and then how to send sample HTTP requests. So Express is useful for us in handling our routing and in creating our HTTP server. So we'll start by installing Express. To install Express, I would head over to my terminal. I have this project created here in this folder. It's called REST API demo. And so in that folder, I'm going to start by running npm init and I would walk through all of this, and then to install Express I would run the npm command npm install Express, and that would install the Express module in my project. And so after installing Express, I will head over to VS Code, and you can see in my package.json file I have Express as part of my dependencies here. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to create an index file called index.js, and in this file we'll be creating our server. We'll be setting up our server in this file. So I'm going to start by requiring the Express module which we have installed. I'll do that by saying const express equals require express. In order to use the methods in the Express module, I have to initialize it by saving it to a variable. Let's call that app. So const app equals express. So you can see it creates an Express application. The Express function is a top level function exported by the Express module. So this function here creates an Express app which we can then use to handle our routing and all of what we need to do. So the next thing I'll do is to configure my app to listen to a port. So I'll do that by saying app.listen, and then I'm going to ask it to listen to ports, let's say 3000, and then add a callback function. That function takes no parameters. All I want it to do is to print to the console that my server is up and running. It's up and running. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to start my server by running node index.js, and there we have it. The server is up and running. Great. So the next thing we're going to do is to discuss HTTP request method. So the HTTP request methods are the different methods with which HTTP requests are made. There's the get request method, which is usually used to fetch data from a server or an API. There's the post request method, which is used to send data through a server or an API. There are also several others. There's the put request, the patch requests, delete request method, and a lot of them, but we would be starting off with just these two, the get request method and the post request method. So in order to so we would be using these HTTP request methods in our app. So let's start by sending a simple request to our index route. So to create a route in Express, I would use this app that has been made available to us by the Express method, and from that app I can configure some routes which I want to be available on my app. So I'll start by creating an index route. I'll do that by saying app dots. Now after app dots, what will come next is the method you are trying to use. That is the HTTP request method you are trying to use, which could be get, posts, puts, deletes, or any of them. So to do that, I would just say app.get. I could also say app.posts or app.puts or app.deletes. So whichever request method is being used becomes the verb I add to the app. So this time we're trying to create a get request to the index route. So I'm going to say app.get. App.get takes in two parameters. The first one is the route, which I'm trying to configure, and then the callback function. So first I'm going to add the route, which is my index route, and then I'm going to add a callback function, and that function takes in two parameters. That function takes in requests and response, and similar to the way the HTTP module works, I can just say res.send hello world, and this will send back hello world as a string back to the user. So I'm going to save this and restart my server. And my server is up and running. And then I'm going to head over to my browser and go to the localhost on port 3000, and there we have it. The hello world string is printed back to the client. Great. So that means that our index route is configured correctly to send this string back to the user. The next thing we'll be doing would be to create another route. Let's call that route slash books, and what we want that route to do is to send an imaginary number of books back to the user. So still using the same method, I would say app.get slash books, and then the function request and response, and that just sends back to the user. Let's just say there are 4 books in store. So I'm going to go back to my server to restart. and then back to my browser and just /books, and then it says, oh, there's a little typo here, there are 4 books in store. Okay, great. So this is a simple example on how we'll send GET requests using the app, the Express app we just created. The next thing we will do will be to send a post request. Like I mentioned earlier, the post request is meant to send data to the server or to the API. So it is expected that data that is being sent by the clients is received by the server, handled and interpreted in a particular way too. So let us start by just creating a post route. Let's call that app.posts. On the index route too. And so the difference between this route here and this route here will just be the methods. So that means if I send a GET request to the index route, this is what happens. However, if I send a POST request to the same route, this is what happens. So let us create the function with requests and response, and let us have that function send back to us. This is a POST request. I'm going to save this. Now to send a POST request, I will not be doing that from the browser. I will be doing that from a client software called Postman. Postman is used to create I will be using a software called Postman. Postman is used to create and send HTTP requests. It's a very robust application that you can use. There are other applications you can also use, Insomnia and some others too, but for now I'll just stick with using Postman. So on Postman I can create and send HTTP requests in different methods. So I'll create a new tab over here, and you can see this drop down allows me to select the request method I'm trying to use. So this time I'm using the POST method, and then I type in the URL here, which is just HTTP localhost 3000, and if I send this, you can see it sends back this is a POST request. If I send a GET request, however, you would see it's hello world. So the same routes but different methods, and that can be handled correctly using Postman. So this explains how we can create routes and configure them in our Express app. So in the next class we would be learning how better to handle our POST requests, how to receive the data coming from the clients, and how to parse it correctly. So I would see you in the next class.